Hello, friends. Welcome to the Cold War Prepper. And this is Tuesday night, so we're getting close to finishing up with Dr. Bradley's book. Just a quick note, I was watching Canadian Prepper, either yesterday or today. At my age, you lose track of time. And Mitch J, welcome. And hello, Tofu. I'm glad you're here. Hopefully things have worked out for you this evening, and so you're in our prayers. But we're just about ready to finish up this Arthur T. Bradley book. I noticed on Canadian Prepper, either today or yesterday, he mentioned that he is going to be interviewing Dr. Bradley again here in the very near future. I think it's probably in the next 2 weeks, he said. But Dr. Bradley is the premier EMP expert at NASA. You know, hello, Butch. There are two things that I totally love about Texas ice storms. It reminds me of Germany and skiing in the Alps. Hello, Triple G Farms. But you know, skiing the Alps in Germany and this cold weather, just unbelievable. So number one is hot chocolate, and number two is borscht, or not borscht, but goulash soup. And but we don't have goulash soup. Maybe Helen will make some. She's talking about making a pot of chili tomorrow, which is also great for this cold weather. So evidently the invite just went out for some reason. StreamYard and YouTube send out the notification that I've gone live just as I go live, and then it takes about 1 or 2 minutes for people to kick in and get here. Linda Bop, welcome. So, you know, people are starting to show up now. So we've got these 2 chapters we're going to do tonight. Then we have 2 more chapters. Once we finish those 2 chapters next week, so get, you know, down below, order your book now. So 2 weeks from tonight, we will be beginning A. American and Alan Kay's book, Decline and Decay. And this is strategies for surviving the coming unpleasantness. So, oh, Mitch J, I'm jealous. Major pot today. So anyhow, this one, we're going to be starting off with chapters 1 and 2. So chapter 1, the one that I'm on, the big kick I'm on right now, the mental stuff. And chapter 2 is going to be the village. And we'll be talking about that tonight in a different way here with Dr. Bradley when he talks about his disaster preparedness network. So that's going to be kind of a continuation of that same discussion. So looking forward to that. Let me see. No problem, Richard. Welcome. Richard Brandel, I guess it is. And welcome. Yep, you can listen in, no problem. So let's go ahead and get started in the last 2 of the last 4 chapters of this one. I've got my bookmark set up there. So I'm going to be basically going through the review of the chapter, and then we can go back and because he's got some fantastic charts and everything else. And different things that are pretty good. I mean, pretty doggone good at forming a disaster plan network. So he goes through and reminds us. Hello, Jay Creature. No. We went on a seniors trip through our recreation center last Thursday. And the bus driver, who's actually the head of the senior recreation department at the city recreation center, he was just laughing his tail off. He says, I can't wait to tell my wife that I met a guy from El Paso who spent the trip in the back of the bus speaking in Russian to a Ukrainian, and she was trying to learn Spanish from another person. So he was translating and teaching her how to conjugate verbs in Spanish by translating the conjugation into Russian, but she's Ukrainian and Russian is the second language. He said, I can't wait to tell my wife that, because his wife is from El Paso too. So, you know, I mean, in El Paso, you grew up speaking Spanish. But anyhow, so what he says is you are much safer and more likely to survive a serious disaster if you're part of a group of like-minded people. And I wholeheartedly agree, because you can't do it alone. If you do it alone while you're out collecting firewood, while you're out fishing, while you're out collecting water, any task that you're doing, you're either taking everything with you to do that task and you don't have an established area, or you're leaving that susceptible to theft and being taken by somebody else. So if you have a network of people, if you have somebody, at least a couple. So for example, here, if I go do something, then Helen is going to be here in the house protecting the house. Oh, she likes her new holster, by the way, that we just got. So tried that today. I showed it in the haul video that I did over the weekend. But anyhow, one person has to be defending an established area, whether that be let's consider the home a permanent area. Your hunker down area is going to be a permanent, versus a mobile, which would be, if you plan on bugging out, you're going to go to a mobile area, and that's not going to be quite as permanent as what your hunker down area is. So, at least here, I know I have some neighbors, I have the wife. We can help each other collectively. The other thing is staying up 24 hours. Somebody has to be awake 24 hours standing guard duty, basically. And that gets rough, when you're, I don't know why, but, in the Army, I had to work 12 hours. And when I was in a tactical unit, 12 hours as an intercept operator, and then 4 hours of guard duty. But that 4 hours of guard duty was not necessarily right before or right after you did your 12 hours in the turkey. TRQ-23 is what we had. That's an intercept van. But anyhow, it seemed as if every time that it was my sleep period is when we decided that we were going to move, what we call a tactical jump. And so that would take about 6 hours. So quite often I would spend several weeks with 2 to 4 hours of sleep a day. Something gives when you're working like that. Now, chances are that I would be sitting at the radio and fall asleep. I would rather do that than sitting on guard duty and falling asleep. But, you need more people in order to get more things accomplished. Point number 2, a disaster plan network is most effective when members strive to pool resources, share supplies, and leverage skills. So other people have strengths. I have strengths. Hopefully we are strong where the other people are weak, and vice versa. And so this is one of those cases where you want to get a collaboration of people who have basically different hobbies, different likes, different things that they are doing. We've got the one that we're working on right now. It's just a couple of houses down. Oh, probably a block and a half, 2 blocks down. We've got a gunsmith. Man, would that be great to have in case something breaks, so that he can help us with everything. Oh, wow. 11th ACR. Yeah. So you understand what's going on there. And okay, so disaster planning networks can include anyone, but often consist of friends and family, neighbors, service providers, and members from church or civic organizations. So yes, and also you can go to business meetings and stuff like that. So I had my cards made, and Cold War Prepper business cards with all my contact information. When I go out, I'm always soliciting, people to give me a call. Let's talk about this. Very few actually do call me, but I'm always soliciting. Let's form a network. I asked I asked 2 surgeons. One of them said he's already in a group. The other one said that he lives too far away. I've asked 2 physicians. There's a whole bunch of retired special forces here in the area. So one of those physicians told me he's already aligned with that special forces unit and that group. The other physician is close to us. We just haven't really hooked up yet. He's also agreed to be interviewed on the channel. I'm really lucky that part of our group owns Mira Survival. and so that's the gas mask company and everything else here in the area. And he is a great asset and a great guy to have in the group. So, but he lives, once again, he lives about 7-8 miles away. So you need somebody that's really going to be close in. A couple of things that I'm going to recommend to you. Number one, if you have a church, chances are there is a group at your church. Um, so, take a look there. Another place you can go is if you have a gun store, go talk to the people at the gun store. And hello, X24 Reviews. You can go talk to the people at the gun store. They're in the know about, groups that are out there. When I talk to the gun store owner here in this town, and then the next town over, I know both of them. I always emphasize the fact I am not interested in a militia. Don't want to have anything to do with the militia. I just want people who are preparing to outlast whatever's going to happen. Collectively together. Then you can hold an initial social gathering so that everybody can get to know each other, identify your DP handbook, that's disaster planning handbook, so that everybody can read and get a clear understanding of the needed preparations. So let me explain to you how that works. There's about 120 houses here in our homeowners association in our neighborhood. And but the unfortunate thing is more than 50% of them are rental houses. And so I put out on Facebook that we had a Facebook page. Let's get together and see if we can't plan and prepare in case we have sort of a disaster. And this was probably about 5 years ago. I had 2 families show up to that disaster planning meeting. And then after that, the 3 of us kind of got together. And then 2 years later, we had Snowmageddon. So we were able to help other people. Right after Snowmageddon, I put out a 2-page letter. I had 120 copies of 2 pages, 1 page front and back. These are the lessons we learned from Snowmageddon. Here's what we need to do in case it happens again. Put that on 120 doors and asked for everybody to come for a meeting. Had the same 2 people show up at that meeting. Here we are in the middle of another Snowmageddon tonight. We're getting temperatures down to about 25 degrees. We've got a 1/2 inch of ice on the ground, anticipating another inch of ice overnight. So tomorrow's going to be iced out. We already have some power outages due to ice accumulating on the power transmission lines. That gets heavy. It breaks the line. Remember, I spent 3 years in that industry as an HR director. And, I was thinking, gosh, I may have to run up to that co-op and fix hot chocolate. Yeah, hot chocolate for all the linemen. We would fix it, put it in thermoses, and take them out to where they were working on the lines. Because, these are the guys who are out there working on icy poles at 35, at 25 degrees with 35 miles an hour winds, working on, 7,100 volt lines. And it's terrible. Very, very dangerous. So, just have that initial social gathering. Can you get people there? Have I identified myself as a place for people to come to after SHTF happens, that they know that I'm a prepper? Yes. They don't know how much I have or don't have. All they know is that I am preparing for it. So, that allows us to also get some protective measures put in place. Here are a couple places. Oh, I should have made these into banners. Let me do that. Let me create a banner here real quick for you. I want to give you a couple places. I don't know if anybody watches the Prepared Homestead, but Travis has his own group where he tries to connect people. And so you can join the Prepared Homestead Network. And this is it here. So that says TPH, the Prepared Homestead Network.com. You can join it and find people of a like mind. There is another great one out there, and let me put that one in here. That's survivalnetwork.co, I think. No, this is .com. So survivalnetwork.com. Oh, I need to edit that. I need to put in a www, I guess. Here we go. Okay, so here's the second one, survivalnetwork.com. You can join it, put in why you want to join, where you are, and everything else, and then your radius, how big a radius you want to have as far as people coming to meet you, and that will hook you up with like-minded people. As a matter of fact, I just got a call from the regional director this morning from survivalnetwork.com. Another one, if you're Catholic, is Korak.co. So that's what does Korak stand for? The core of, let me get up here just a second. The core of renewal and charity. So it is a religious organization, a religious preparedness organization, and it does do some. Oh, what do they call that when you go out and preach the word? Anyhow, so it is. They do focus on trying to further Christianity throughout the world, and so that's one of the things you have to be willing to do and be willing to help with if you're a member of Corex. So it's primarily, I want to say it's 99% Catholic. I put in a question to the group and I said, I really want a good shortwave transceiver. What do you recommend? I really want a good antenna. So what do you recommend? I mean, within 15 minutes, I had two guys recommend the same transceiver, and there were different antennas, but I got two different antennas I can choose from. So, very good as far as sharing information. So I really, really like that. But, consider these other two. Consider TPH Network and consider survivalnetwork.com. Let's see if other people have any others that they've got in here. Hello, Lori. Welcome. I hope you're not still in the hospital, uh, but we're praying for your health. Um, what's the word I'm looking for, Lori, when you go out and preach the word? Not discipleship, but Mitch J. I'm in Central Texas, in Austin suburb. So the greater Austin area. Let me see here. Thank you for that, Lori. Yes. So the old phone company buildings did. There were several old civil defense bunkers that were designated. Kresge's, I don't know if anybody remembers that. They went out of business, but the Kresge's used to have shelters as well, and they were stocked with food and the whole bit. And they did that as a public service back when I was a kid. But they were a dime store. If anybody knows what a dime store is anymore. Evangelism. Thank you, Tofu. So Korak evangelizes a lot. So, please understand that if you decide to join them. Dragon Slayer, welcome. Oh gosh, Lori, let me tell you. I hope you can get out of there very, very quickly. I hope that you heal and you're restored. Let me see here. Another good term. Missionary. Thank you, Jay Creature. Oh, wow. I'll have to write that one down and check into it. Thank you very much, Acer. ANTS. Okay. Um, so Kay is also here in Texas. I don't know about you, Kay, but it's 1 inch of ice here with 25 degrees. Witnessing is a great term. Thank you, SJ. That's a great one. Um, the water. What we're getting right now, Jay, is primarily sleet, and what is not sleet is freezing rain. So that's going to cause some problems, and we've had some major wrecks so far. Uh, and then of course the first responders have to drive on that, and that's very difficult. We just got a call. Our city has a reverse 911. And so about 4 hours ago, we got a call that the streets are extremely dangerous and please stay off the streets except for extreme emergencies. It's going to remain that way. They've now extended it through Friday. Originally, it was only through noon tomorrow, but now it's been extended through Friday. Um, mm, okay. At the follow-up meeting, I have a 3-ring binder, and so of things that people should consider, like communications. Which radio should you have? What frequencies are we going to, or channels are we going to use? How do you develop your call sign? We have what we communications electronics operating instructions. CEOI is what we call it in the military, and so it just basically tells you who you can tell who you are, so that other people don't necessarily know who you are unless you do some analysis. And that's what I did for a living. Only I did it against the Russians, the Soviets. And then, um, you want to have you might have certain codes. Now, using of a code or an encipherment system during peacetime is illegal. So, once SHTF happens and there's nobody to enforce those laws, then you might want to encipher or encrypt their communications back and forth. So, basic things like that in your plan is going to be important. Also, standardize your weapons or your calibers. Also, things like I buy a lot of Bear Creek soups, and so I have a 5-gallon pot. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, I'm going to be out in the neighborhood trying to help people with soup, and so people can bring in and add to the soup. So, that's some of the things that we do. I saw something I wanted to respond to here real quick. So, you can put that in your CEOI and how that works. It's best if you're going to have an exchange, so people have to bring something in order to eat. It's best if you have a policy that states that, so that they can't say that you're changing it based upon who you're serving. Um, let me see. So, yeah, that's kind of some of the things you want to do. Standardizing ammunition, standardizing. One of the things I'm really, really want to push is that everybody gets the same individual first aid kit, because in an emergency, you want to know exactly where everything is in that first aid kit. Same as yours, the same as theirs, so you can treat them with a sense of urgency. What is my backup heat if the power goes out? Is the question by Mitch MJ. So, a couple things. Um, Number one, I have 150% of my normal electricity is produced by my solar panels. And then I have backup battery power here in the garage, so that we can last, with average consumption to include the air conditioner, we can last about 60 hours before we have to repower or regenerate the battery. Typically, during the daytime, the sun is going to hit the solar panels, and that's going to regenerate the battery. As it is right now, with overcast skies and with the rain, I'm sorry, the freezing ice covering the panels, we're not generating. Let me see how much we generated today. So today we generated, come on, my enlightenment. Today we generated a total of 1.81 kilowatt hours, and we consumed 23.9. Now because we have power still to the house, we still have 100% of our battery, so we haven't used any of the battery at all. I also have a Jackery backup solar system. I have a backup solar freezer that I can put, and both of those are charged already. And then I have a 5 kW gas generator. One of the things that we learned as a result of Snowmageddon was I had the gas generator outside, and I didn't have a way to get that cord inside the house unless I left a crack in the door. We had an electrician put a port in through the brick and into the house so that I can run an extension cord from the generator into that port, and then it looks just like a regular plug on the inside of the house, but we can only run one or two things off of it. And that's typically going to be either a refrigerator, freezer, or a light or something like that. Now for heating, we have a couple things. I did a video on my Boy Scout stoves, and so we have several of those. That's basically a tuna can with cardboard inside of it and paraffin, and then we can put those on the oven door with the oven open. We can, if we have gas available to us, we can turn on the oven and use that heating. I do have the clay pot heater with tea light candles. We put 6 tea light candles under our clay pot heater. I just recently bought the Vesta Instafire, or Instafire's Vesta heater. I forget which one's which, the name and the company. But anyhow, it uses the Sterno safe heat cans, and then it has an inductor that converts heat into electricity and runs the fan so that it blows the hot or the heat out, and you can feel it probably 6 feet away. So that that's just a fantastic little tool. As a matter of fact, I've recommended about a dozen people have sent me emails saying they bought it and they love it. The latest that I got was yesterday. I got a notice from Prepping by Faith that she had just received hers in, and I asked her if she would, because she's really good at editing and everything else. I asked her if she would be kind enough to do a review of it, and so she's going to do that. So I have, and plus I have a Mr. Buddy, and I probably have a dozen 1 pound cans of Sterno heat for my Mr. Buddy at low power, just minimum heating from that. I'll get about 9 hours out of 1 pound out of that 1 pound propane tank. With the chafing fuel, the safe heat, those are 6-hour candles. So one case of 12 of those, using 2 for heat and 1 to power the electric fan, and they're all good for 12 hours. So that's going to give me roughly 48 hours of solid heat, and so just various things. And then we have candles as well. So I hope that answers your question. We got several different ways that we're going to be providing heat to the house with this ice mess going on. So Dragon Slayer is 100% correct. I kept complaining after they did my total hip replacement about pain in my femur. And so, my orthopedic surgeon said, everything looks great. I don't know what's wrong. I went to pain management. Pain management found out that I had basically one of my army injuries from a broken back, that had come back basically, and it was compressing, and so that most of the pain in my leg is associated with that disc, and so they may have to fuse my spine here in the near future. I'm going to go to VA and see if I can't get more out of that, because that's one of those things that got me the 70% disability when I left the military. Let me get down here. What brand is my solar freezer? I really don't know. I would have to go look. I will tell you, it was recommended by Pinball Preparedness. He recommended it. He had a special where you could buy one. The solar panel's kind of built into the top, and then it had an extra battery that he could get that. We could go to this place and use his code and get the extra battery for free. I will tomorrow in the comments of this video, where I do the description and everything else, I'll put the link or at least the name of that freezer in there for you for tomorrow. Okay, Mitch? So look for that tomorrow. I'd have to go out to the garage and get the name off of it right now. Thank you, Hello Tofu. That's really nice of you. Let me see. So Mitch says he ordered the Vesta tool and ordered the fuel from Sam's Club. Yes, exactly. I think it's going to be great in case we have anything. Falling fruit. Let me see if I can get this to go here. There we go. Falling Fruit is a massive collaborative map of the urban harvest. By uniting the efforts of foragers, vegans, and foresters everywhere, the map already points to over 500,000 food sources. Wow, that's great. So I'll have to write that one down too. Don't we have such great people in our chat willing to share and teach and help? That's phenomenal. Thank you for being such great people and helping each other instead of the argumentative, downtrodden type. When I was younger, what's his name? Gosh, there's an actor I was accused of looking like when I was younger. Started in The Graduate. Forget his name, doggone it. Anyhow, you can tell that there's no resemblance now, that's for sure. Yeah, you were complaining about that the other day before yesterday or yesterday, about the food being terrible. I will say that they put me on home rehab with my hip replacement, and they put Helen in the hospital for both after her car wreck and after her hip replacement. And so the rehab centers there, I ate there, but I've got 21 years active duty, so I'm kind of used to cafeteria type food, and it was pretty good as far as I was concerned. But yes, I agree. Fantastic. Yeah, and you're probably going to continue, because once that ice accumulates on the wires, there's a certain tensile strength. You can't pull the wire straight. If you notice, they're built, if you look between two poles, there's a sag. And also another thing is I found out as being part of the executive board, if the power line changes direction more than 15 degrees, so you have two power poles here, and then all of a sudden you have a third power pole over here that goes off at a different angle. If it goes more than 15 degrees, they have to have a support cable pulling down opposite of the new direction. So, you're going to have, if you have like this, then you're going to have a support out here, and you're going to have a support out here because of the tension on the wires will cause them to sag inwards. But yeah, so once you get sand on, or once you get the ice on that, then the weight exceeds the tensile strength and the sag strength of the wires, and just depends. Once you get a good inch on it, you're going to snap them. That's for sure. And that's where the most common problem is snapping wires because of the weight. When a disaster event occurs, no matter how small, connect with your network members to make sure everyone's needs are being met. That implies that you have a fantastic communication system. And that's where having GMRS or FRS or CB radios or handy talkies is going to be critically important, so that you can use the battery power inside your home and communicate with other people outside your home that are in your community. Oh, wow. That is great advice. Thank you. So I think it's Generac does the whole house generator, where it's basically using the natural gas that comes into the home on that pipeline. And so my question was, to the salesperson, well, what if it's something like an EMP attack and there's no power at the pumping station to pump that natural gas into your system in order to run the generator? So I think your idea of having a propane system is above the natural gas system that I was looking into with Generac. So I think you're wiser with the natural gas, but every system has its downfalls. There's advantages and limitations of every single system. You just have to consider what they are. Of course, we don't get that much freezing weather here in Central Texas, although it appears that we might be in that cycle where it's going to happen a little bit more often. Dustin Hoffman, thank you, SJ. That's who it was. Yeah, I got accused of that. I wish I could represent it, but all cars have four-wheel stop. There's no rules. It's thunders one, stay home. Yes, absolutely. And even with four-wheel drive, and I have off-road tires on my pickup and four-wheel drive and everything else, and I don't go out and stuff like that. Huh. Good information. Thank you. We don't do stuff like that here. That's the reason why we get caught literally with our pants down when we have bad weather, is we have this is the second freeze in 20 years, today. And the Snowmageddon in 21 was a once in 100-year event, they said. So, I mean, we just don't get it. Like our water pipes are barely 18 inches underground because it very seldom even freezes the top inch of the ground. If we get ice here, it's usually off the ground the next day. Same thing with snow. Snow that lasts more than 24 hours here in Central Texas is considered a miracle. So Triple G Farm says it's Generac with natural gas. Oh, not natural gas. It's propane. But I think that's wiser because it will have pressure, whereas the natural gas, in the event of an EMP or a solar event or something like that, probably will not have the power to pressurize it. So let me see. Consider becoming active in online disaster preparedness communities. I gave you some ideas about that, such as the American Preppers Network or the Preparedness Radio Network. Okay, the Five Horsemen of Death: earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, depending upon where you are. A fantastic map on page 368 that shows which areas are more susceptible to what. Here where I am, we're at the very tail end of Tornado Alley. Of course, where my sister lives, which is about 5 miles north of me, a little town called Gerald, they had an F5 plus hit back in 90, I'm going to say 97. And that split into three when it came down into Round Rock area. One of those was an F1 that went through my street. F3 over in Cedar Park took out a grocery store, and thank God that the manager of the grocery store had all his people put into the cooler, into the refrigerator, the large walk-in refrigerator. Basically, the store was torn up, the roof was torn up and everything else, but the people were safe inside the refrigerator. So we get that. We also get the remnants of hurricanes, especially those that hit Corpus Christi or Houston. So we get those, and we get a lot of rain from those. Since we're in the hill country, as long as you're up on top of a hill, you're pretty safe from flooding or anything like that. We have had some wildfires. The very first year we lived in our first house was my dad was born on July 4th. And we had them over for his birthday, and we barbecued out in the backyard. Somebody lit some firecrackers off in the field across from us, and it caught on fire. And that was a very large wildfire. It took like 20 fire companies to put out that humongous wildfire with all the cedars that were in front of the house. We had to go cross country to get them out of our house and over to their house, which was only about 5 miles away. So, What are the most common events that are going to be happening in your area? Um, think about earthquakes, their severity, and how often they happen. The Cascadia subduction zone up in the northwest, and then you've also they just closed um, Puget Sound Naval Station, the dry docks today. This morning it was announced because of the fear of an impending um, earthquake from the Cascadia subduction zone. There's been a lot of activity in and around Yellowstone, so that's another one you have to be kind of concerned about. And so then you've got the San Andreas Fault, and they say that that's ready for a 7.0 sometime in the near future. Um, there's an awful lot of natural stuff going on. Um, Let me see here. Then they've got a tsunami if anybody's on the coastline. Now, there is, one of those things that they say. Now, our elevation here is around 900 feet, and they are saying that if this event that they're talking about on Suspicious Observer, if that event happens, that the tsunami will be 1,000 feet high. So if it's 1,000 feet high, I'm going to be underwater here in Central Texas because we're only about 850 feet high as far as elevation. So, and then they say within 4 hours, if that happens, within 4 hours, there's going to be major freezing, and areas that are now considered tropical will be frozen, and areas that are frozen will be considered tropical, and just crazy. It's hurricane season. Major places have been hit by major hurricanes. We have to worry about storm surge, and that's basically a mini tsunami. So when I was in Germany, we had a civilian who maintained all of our intercept equipment, and he was a radio tech with the Coast Guard, and he was out on Attu Island in Alaska for the '64 earthquake. And he said that the first wave, the water receded away from Attu Island by about a quarter of a mile, and it came in, and there was this cliff, and it was about 200 feet high, and the water came up about a quarter of the way up the cliff. Then the water went out about half a mile, and when it came back in as a tsunami, it came about 3/4 of the way up over the cliff. Then the water went out about a mile. He said, "Holy poo-poo." And he ran inside the hut and found the water pipe that was drilled down inside the rock of the island and held onto it. And the water from that tsunami actually came inside their hut where they were stationed. So tsunamis can be something else. So beware of tsunamis, hurricanes, and tidal surges. Tornadoes, of course, just get down as much as you can. Hold on to something. The best place in your home for a tornado, of course, is going to be a doorway because you've got the structure there to support you. Bathrooms are a great place to be. Flooding, and it talks about flood-prone areas, and that's basically it. So what questions do you have about those two chapters? Next week, the last two are going to be EMP attack and solar storms, and then how to put your plans into action. Let me catch up here with comments, and let's see. You guys are probably throwing in a whole bunch of great stuff. Look at all the stuff that I've missed since the last one. All propane outside, above ground sub-zero. Let me see. I recognize you from Nutrient Survival. Are you and Matt near Somerset, Pennsylvania? Oh, okay. So Kay and Triple G Farms and I are all here in the central Texas area. I probably need to get with Kay too. She seems like a really nice person. Yes, and so we have to be careful how we talk about that. There used to be a fantastic channel called Ice Age Farmer, and that's where I got most of my information from. And yes, we are in it. We were going to do Preparing for Cold Times for the next disaster nonfiction book, but then all of a sudden I found out about A American's book. I wanted to do it first. We still are going to do the Cold Survival book, and I think that's going to be critical. We are in a GSM cycle. For those of you who know what that means, that's the uh, like a piano, the big one, yeah, or the concert one, and then the sun, and then minimum. And so, talking about sunspot activity and freezing opportunity for hearing. The last time it happened, so look up Maunder effect, Maunder, and what's the other one? Oh gosh, I forget the other name. But anyhow, there's two of them. early 1800s, I think it was 1815 in Germany, or in England, they called it the year without a summer. And that's what we could be going through right now, getting ready for that with this solar cycle 25. Uh, yes, so being prepared during a hurricane is extremely important. I think right now, food crises are going to be hitting us in the very near future. Um, Oh, the north end of Gonzales County, thermometer reports are showing 32 degrees half hour ago. Yeah, and here in the greater Austin area, it's 25 right now. So we're just a little bit north of that. I had a nephew who was a high school football coach in Victoria, and then he went down to Rockport. Okay, rehab cafeterias unfortunately are run a bit different. So the problem we had was w- number one, I wanted Helen to have a private room, and so I called around, and one of the things that we know is that most, and I'm going to use this as a general term, most physicians don't really understand insulin, and so trying to all they know is the short-term insulin. So they're going to give you an insulin before you eat or an insulin injection after you eat. They don't understand long-term insulin, and so one of the questions that I asked was, will she be allowed to keep her pump and self-medicate because we have everything's computerized for her. And they told that, so I called around until I found one and said, yeah, she can keep it. And then I said, do you pay for the ambulance to transport her from the hospital to you? And they said, yes, we pay for that. So I put her in the hospital, and I left. And within 15 minutes after the time I left, they confiscated her insulin and her pump and locked it up in the pharmacy, and they were giving her nothing but short-term insulin. So I had to call the director on a weekend at home and tell him, "You've got half an hour to return the pump and the insulin, or I'm moving her to a different facility." And so the pharmacist was not happy. He had to come in on the weekend and and take care of that, but we got it taken care of. So yeah, the hospitals are notorious for that. They 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 aren't good at handling exceptions to their rules. So they've called up the National Guard. Wow. In Kingwood. Kingwood is just north of Houston, if I remember correctly. Um, we were about ready to buy a house in Spring when I got promoted and moved to the Austin area. That's when I was working for the state. Um, Okay, Jay's not a bunker guy, but he does have a culvert bunker for tornadoes. I was surprised. I had a nephew that came back from Afghanistan, bought a motorcycle, and then 2 weeks after he came back, he was killed in a motorcycle accident. So I went to his funeral up at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Lawton, Oklahoma. And so his wife, I stayed with the family, and his wife in the house that he had bought, all homes in that area had bunkers, had tornado bunkers in the backyard. So that's kind of the how it goes in the uh, Oklahoma region. Um, Jay, thank you for that. That's so kind. Appreciate that. Um, let me see here. What else do we have here? If you win this Powerball, you will prep. Do you still prep? Well, if you win the Powerball, let me tell you about some property that would be fantastic. It has a constant running stream. It has a 6-acre lake that is stocked with all kinds of fish. It's got good hunting. They have whitetail and mule deer on the property that they have actually had farmed in. They've also got some other, antlered creatures for hunting purposes. It's over 600 acres and it's $6 million, but you can put a bunker there and oh gosh, and it's just a great property. So if you get that, let me know and I'll be happy to manage the property for you and take care of the bunker until you arrive. Lampasas is 24 degrees, okay, and a quarter inch of ice and shaky power. So Lampasas is about 1 hour north of us, straight up on Highway 183. And usually they get things worse than we do down here, to be honest with you. Just a great little town. Halfway to where my wife is from. My wife is straight up 183 to a little committee town an hour north of Lampasas called Brownwood. So Lampasas was the halfway point for us when we went there. Okay, let's see. So Dragon Slayer has exposure to both hurricanes and tornadoes. Lost a roof. It was over the garage, so he was lucky. Wow. One of the things I don't understand is I've got a family member who's living in a manufactured house in an area that is prone to tornadoes here in Central Texas. And, they've had 2 devastating tornadoes go through the area where she lives. And last time there was a tornado in that area, there was one touchdown about a mile away from her. She spent the night in her car underneath a freeway overpass. So, okay, so that's kind of we got most of the comments taken care of, I believe. Lori, I am so happy that you were able to make it and that you. It appears that you got into a room where you're capable of running your portable at least, and so yeah. So Tracy, let me tell you. I will definitely add. Let me make a note of that because I want to make sure I get the name right. If you all don't mind, I'm reading this fantastic book, and I know that there's a lot of people who don't like the Catholic Church, and there's a lot of misinformation out there about it. That I had to correct somebody the other day that says Christian and Catholic. No. Everybody that was Christian was Catholic until Martin Luther, and he broke away from the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church has 1,500 years of being the Christian church. And so I had to remind this person of that. Let me find the book here, but I'm reading this fantastic book. There it is. And so this is the Crucified Rabbi by Taylor Marshall. And it's understanding the Jewish traditions within the Catholic Church. And, that's one of the things is, for example, the Catholic Church still has an altar. Protestant churches have replaced the altar with a pulpit. And so we still have the altar where we worship at an altar. And so Taylor Marshall's talking about the Jewish origins. And one of the other common things we get is, well, you pray to Mary, and people don't understand that. So the first thing is that in the Jewish tradition. So if we take a look at Bathsheba was one of the 200 wives of David. So the wife of the king was not the queen in and Judea and Israel. Okay. It was the mother of the king was the queen. So, in order for Bathsheba to see David, she had to request an audience to be seen by him in the chambers. And however, when Solomon became the king after his father David, Bathsheba didn't have to request anything. She just walked on in because now she was the queen. She was the mother of the king. So the mother of the king in Jewish tradition is the queen. So the mother of Jesus is Mary, and therefore she is the queen if he is the king. And so he talks here that he when Dr. Marshall, when he first became an Episcopalian priest, he was told to go pray for this woman, and so he got there, and the woman, he went in just before she went under anesthesia, and he didn't recognize her, and so he said a prayer with her, and she said, well, okay. She went under anesthesia. He was leaving, and a rabbi was coming in, and the rabbi asked to see Sarah. That was the person he had just left. He says, "Is she Jewish?" And he goes, "Yeah." And she says, "Well, I didn't recognize her as a member of our church." So he walked out, and while he walked out, he saw this man sitting there in the waiting room, and it was her husband. And he was Episcopalian. The wife was Jewish. So he went in to say the prayer on behalf of this guy for her. So he's sitting there comforting the husband, and the rabbi comes out, and so this is the conversation after the rabbi comes out with the husband and with Dr. Marshall. He says, then the rabbi asked Mr. Smith a very unusual question. What is your Joanna's mother's Hebrew name? And the husband thought about it for a moment, said, gee, I don't know. Why do you ask? And he says, well, I was going to ask Joanna the name of her mother, but she was already under by the time I found her. So Mr. Smith asked, why would you need to know her mother's name? And the rabbi explained, Jews believe that if someone is suffering and you invoke the name of his or her mother in prayer, God will be more merciful in granting your prayer for that person. So that's kind of that Jewish tradition that's been brought over. And so that's part of that explanation as to why there's a belief that Mary can be an intercessor. And Lori says she's read it, and she says it's a great book. I'm really having a good time with it. I've worn out one highlighter already, and as you can tell, I tab my books when I find certain things, and I highlight them and everything else. And so, yeah, it's a fantastic book. But yeah, absolutely, Tracy, we've got you on our prayer list, and so that'll. You'll be taken care of that way for sure, I promise. Yeah, and so one of the things we have to take a look at is how many wives and concubines did Saul, David, and then Solomon, and then after Solomon, the empire split into Jeroboam and Rehoboam. So you had the 10 tribes up north for Israel and 2 tribes down in the south for Judea. And so all of those had hundreds of wives and hundreds of concubines. And so which one of those became the queen? You couldn't. So that's why the mother became the queen. So a lot of interesting stuff when you put things into perspective as far as history and what was going on and how they thought versus how we think. And really, really interesting. Okay, so next week, we're finishing up this book, the last 2 chapters of this book. The week after that, we are beginning this book. And this book will be in the comments down below, so you can go to the Amazon link and purchase it as soon as that shows up tomorrow morning. I'll try to get that in this evening. I also promised another link. It was for the freezer, for my solar-powered freezer refrigerator. And I will have that in the comments tomorrow morning as well. Any final comments or thoughts or prayer requests? So we have 2. We have a prayer request for Tracy, and then we also just keep her in your prayers and keep her in your memory. And then we also have one for Lori, who is currently in a rehab hospital for healing her left leg. So with that, Gosh, I should keep my Bible a lot closer than what I do, shouldn't I? I've got it tabbed here, Exodus 4, or Exodus 6, I'm sorry. Um, there we go, Exodus 6. And this is how you shall bless the Israelites, say unto them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So with that, remember that we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other. Pray for each other, and because togetherness is the key. Take care, y'all. Stay warm and safe. Bye-bye.